Hi, LOG002 will cover the second mission of Halo Combat Evolved, which is Halo, where the character set foot for the first time on the titular structure. This mission differs significantly from the first, taking place in a much wider environment, introducing many of the most common allied and enemy vehicles, and giving the combat more room to shine. The whole mission is about rescuing the Marines that made it out of the ship alive, and regrouping for the eventual rescue of Captain Keyes on the next level. And although camaraderie between members of the same faction may not seem remarkable, many species across our system don't feel the same way, so it's good to see that humans in your dimension also value mutual help. I will comment on other interesting aspects along the way, but for now let's sync up and get started. Alright, we start with a crash landing of the lifeboat in which we finished the last mission. The animation in the original version conveys the panic of the crash landing in a better way, in my opinion.
The others, the impact. There's nothing we can do.
It's good to hear that Cortana takes the time to acknowledge the death of the other Marines. The loss of a life should never go unnoticed. That's an antidote to chaos. Keep it in mind. Behind that waterfall at the distance to the right, there's the Mythic Skull, just so you know.
Warning. I've detected multiple Covenant dropships on approach. I recommend moving into those hills. If we're lucky, the Covenant will believe that everyone aboard this lifeboat died in the crash.
Several times during my playthrough on the original version, the Covenant dropship passes right in front of me while Cortana says this. Although it may look odd for a rifle to be able to destroy a Banshee, making concessions on weight and protection to meet other demands is not uncommon in aeronautics, especially for mass-manufactured ships. The updated graphics really worked well on this level. The added detail on the terrain and vegetation brings the ring to life. It's really nice to see. In here there's a really long firefight with many waves of enemies, so we have time to appreciate some of the ways the Covenant organize their infantry. They get into combat in these oddly shaped ships that have to touch ground to drop the troops, which may not be appropriate for hot deployments. The squad seems to consist of around 5 grunts armed with either pistols or needlers, a couple of jackals with a shield and a pistol, and an elite with a rifle. The fact that grunts are deployed in such large numbers and primarily employ swarm tactics indicate a disregard for their lives, which may be evidence of racism against them. The elites, instead, have an energy shield similar to the players, are seemingly better trained by the way they move, and carry better armament. When the elite is killed, the grunts and jackals run in fear for the moment, but eventually stand their ground and fight normally. Could this behavior be the cause of the racism against this species, or is the result? We'll see. Here I got flanked by an elite who dispositions me and causes my death. This might have been my fault for not paying attention, but gave the encounter a sense of strategy.
Okay, Charlie Team, Warthog deployed.
Now we can ride for the first time one of the staples of the saga, the Warthog. This vehicle is awkward to drive and offers little protection for the driver and the passenger, but that's what makes it so fun to play around with, which highlights a problem with this form of analysis. It's important to keep in mind that a video game needs to be fun first, and then realistic, so looking too deep into things may lead to inaccurate conclusions, so I have to be careful with that.
This cave is not a natural formation. Someone built it, so it must lead somewhere.
Well, it is a logical conclusion that if the cave was built, it must lead somewhere, saying
this cave is not a natural formation.
Makes it sound kinda dumb.
I've hacked into the Covenant battle network. We're actually broadcasting tactical data on unencrypted channels. We should show them who they're dealing
Now,
with.
the Covenant broadcasting battle information without security is a sign of gross incompetence, which, according to my experience, adds to the realism more than taking from it, honestly. Here is the second terminal. It's another monologue of the same AI. I'm going to let it play out for archiving purposes, but clicking the button will skip it.
I am experiencing such a mixture of anticipation and dread. All preparations are complete for my installation. In accordance with the final dictum of the Ecumene Council, I have released myself of all remaining connections to my former station. This was not difficult. What was could never be again. We had seen to that quite thoroughly. Prior to my final journey through the Great Portal, a gathering of my fellow monitors was convened upon the Lightworkers Crash to distribute the final index collection. It was most unusual to have this vessel of rebirth play host to such an event. Even though Lightworker ships were the only ones still allowed slip-space formations, Lightworkers were responsible for getting us to our places on the active facilities of the array. While all of this was in accordance with the plan, one entirely unsatisfactory breakdown remained. We had no contact with the domain. The history of all Forerunners was now lost to us. We relied upon the permanence of the domain to preserve our record of the events that led to this point. But without that record, would future civilizations know anything about us? Or only of our weapons? My fellow monitor, 049 Abject Testament, had only one comment on this before we went our separate ways.
We deserve to be forgotten.
Perhaps. Perhaps. But now, the portal opens, and through it, the familiar shape awaits. Halo. Home.
These are called Forerunner structures and are supposed to be the work of a really advanced species. It's worth noticing how you visually represent technological advancements with clean geometrical architecture. We don't do that necessarily, so that's a difference worth pointing out. And after we dispatch the enemies, we can activate this light bridge and continue rescuing the survivors. That's a neat little touch, and the swelling music is really exciting. In this location, after another firefight, and nearly avoiding an explosive death, we can rescue the Marines hiding in the structure, which is not an easy thing, seeing how little cover they like to take, just standing in front of enemy fire. Continuing with the mission, Fohammer gives the location of the other two lifeboats.
I spotted additional lifeboats in your area. One near a rock slide, and another near the head of the river.
But even though Cortana is able to put a marker on these locations, as she does once you've been wandering around aimlessly for a while, she doesn't do it immediately, risking not only the lives of the Marines you're supposed to rescue, but the Master Chief's by allowing him to get lost in an unknown hostile environment. But anyways, in the next of those two locations there's another firefight, another group of Marines rescued, and onto the final location where there's some more grunt shooting, some more spawn killing, and some more Marine saving. And with that, all the survivors have been saved and can proceed to save Captain Keys and Truth and Reconciliation. Marcus out.